It is a Trump taco train wreck Tuesday, and we are coming in hot on a major breaking story as Donald Trump goes down in flames. I'm going to show that to you in a few seconds because Donald Trump has never really been an athlete his entire life. He's won his entire life mostly because of power, position, money, and the elitism that he's surrounded himself to make sure he doesn't lose. And boy, when he loses, does he whine and cry like a baby, and Donald Trump just lost big time in this breaking story. I'm going to show it to you in a few seconds because Gavin Newsom, Governor of California, had a little something to say to him as the whole thing went down a couple of months ago with the National Guard in Los Angeles. Remember this?
The Trump administration doubled the number of National Guard troops deployed to Los Angeles, with 4,000 troops in and around the area after protests over ICE enforcement have led to violent outbursts.
What might you say to him if I'll give you the floor. You have the opportunity. What you weren't able to say to him on that phone call or calls that he hasn't taken today?
Where's your decency, Mr. President? Stop. Rescind this order. It's illegal and unconstitutional. And I said it. I'll say it again. It's immoral.
I won't speak to the specifics of the operations that are planned in other cities, but I do know that LA wouldn't be standing today. If President Trump hadn't taken action, then that city would have burned down.
And this situation didn't stop there. It kept going.
700 active duty Marines also arrived Tuesday.
If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave them a little additional help, Los Angeles would be burning right now.
This is a guy, people look up to the President of the United States. I mean, Mr. President, it's time to act like one. This is real life. It's not reality TV. And you got to model better behavior.
California Governor Gavin Newsom continued to denounce sending the military into the city, filing an emergency motion to block the Marines' deployment.
And Gavin Newsom was clear to remind Donald Trump of this.
But I think it's sad. And I think it's even worse than you just described. You know, a day before he was to federalize the National Guard here in Los Angeles, he called me. We talked on a Friday night, late at night. And all he wanted to brag about the Newsom thing. He said, it's pretty funny, isn't it? He goes, pretty original. I said, well, it's not original. There was this guy, Maurice, I can't remember his name, but he used to say the same thing. He goes, hey, what about my hats? What do you think? It's a pretty good brand, right? Mega. You know, pretty good. I've sold hundreds of thousands. I mean, I'm like, are you serious? Are we seriously having this conversation when you're supposed to be reading me the riot act about keeping people safe?
So in this breaking story, as we continue to say, just because something happens today in a 24-hour news cycle does not mean it's the end of the story. And by golly, what did Gavin Newsom just do to Donald Trump? He just stuffed his head in the sand like an ostrich and beat him at this challenge regarding the Comitas Act. Here is the breaking story. Check it out. Trump lost.
Breaking news this morning, a federal judge ruling the Trump administration violated federal law by sending National Guard troops to Los Angeles amid the immigration enforcement protests in June. The San Francisco-based judge did not require the remaining troops be withdrawn. California sued the Trump administration, saying the troops violated a law that prohibits military enforcement of local laws. Lawyers for the administration argued that law did not apply to the troops because they were protecting federal officers and property.
U.S. judge blocks Trump administration's use of troops in L.A. A federal judge on Tuesday blocked the Trump administration from deploying the National Guard in California to fight crime. San Francisco-based U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer issued the order for the U.S. District Court California Northern District, according to a court filing. He put the ruling on hold until September 12th. The Trump administration is likely to appeal. Trump ordered 4,000 National Guard and 700 active-duty U.S. Marines to Los Angeles in June in response to protests against large-scale immigration raids in the second-largest U.S. city. The deployment inflamed tensions in the city and drew condemnation from Democrats, who said Trump was using the military to stifle opposition to his hardline immigration policies. The case raised novel legal questions about presidential authority. The lawsuit by Newsom, a prominent Democrat, alleged the troops violated long-standing U.S. norms and a law known as the Posse Comitatus Act, which sharply limits the use of federal troops for domestic enforcement. In his opinion, Breyer said the evidence at trial showed the Trump administration used troops and military vehicles to set up protective perimeters and block traffic and engage in crowd control. In short, the defendants violated the Posse Comitatus Act. wrote Breyer. The Trump administration countered that the U.S. Constitution permits presidents to use troops to protect federal personnel and property as an exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. In June, Breyer found that Trump's deployment of the California National Guard was likely illegal and ordered the troops be returned to Newsom's control. That was reversed by the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals a week later. The three-day trial that ended August 13th addressed the actions of the military after they were deployed to assist federal officers and immigration agents. Lawyers from the California Attorney General's office tried to show that the troops had performed police functions, including setting up security perimeters and detaining 2 people, and were not needed in the first place. They warned that a ruling for the Trump administration would usher in a vast and unprecedented shift in the role of the military in our society. The administration's lawyers tried to show that the troops only acted to protect federal agents from perceived threats and stayed within their legal limits. Breyer appeared concerned that there were few limits on military leaders' discretion for deciding when protection was needed. The administration still had several hundred soldiers in Los Angeles when the trial took place, although the protests had long died down. The troops were being used for security during raids on marijuana farms outside the city and as a show of force to deter protests at a popular park during an operation by immigration agents, according to evidence shown at trial. Trump has separately sent the National Guard to patrol Washington, D.C., a city he said was ridden with crime. Breyer's decision is unlikely to impact the situation there because the president has more leeway to use the National Guard in Washington than he does in states.
Breaking news from Governor Gavin Newsom's press office. Newsom versus Trump, in quotes, because there is an ongoing risk that defendants Trump will act unlawfully and thereby injure plaintiffs California. The court enjoins defendants from violating the Posse Comitatus Act. The people of California won much-needed accountability against Trump's illegal militarization of an American city, Gavin Newsom states in a post. That's what happens, and that's what we have to stay frosty on, as I say all the time, because what Trump is going to do doesn't get resolved and fixed and or pushed back on overnight. The actual due process court system that has made America in many ways what it is today, for all her flaws, takes time. So yeah, 2.5 months later, and sure, Trump will appeal this, but it's not going to matter, because the truth of the matter is, just like the Illegal Aliens Act and what he's using with that in terms of ICE, the bottom line is it's flat out not what those guidelines were put in place for. This will not be the last time Trump loses. You guys, stay frosty.